Hello again, everybody. How you doing today? This is Bill, the company's expert, and holy crap, there's nothing like a extreme coughing fit right before you have to go live to really put your nerves at ease. This is, I guess, kind of a part two. I've got about half an hour here. I did do a how to get hired Q&A session this morning, but it got tacked on to the end of my previous live stream, which was the leadership live stream, episode 4. So if you're wondering why that episode is like 2.5 hours, it's because it's got a whole extra live stream tacked on to the end of it, which was this. I had a technical kerfuffle apparently. And there you go. So I'm back just for about half an hour. And just a shout out to my Patreons and my super thanks donors and my channel members. You guys are awesome. And everyone else who's here. This is the weekly live stream where I answer questions. So if you see my beautiful face, and I'm not engaged in a debilitating, gut-wrenching coughing fit, get in the chat. Let me know what you're struggling with or what you're wondering about in the world of careers, job interview questions, resumes, how to discover jobs, the world of networking, salary negotiation, all that kind of stuff. I'm here to help you with that. Hello to Pearl. Pearl is here. Says, hello, Bill. I hope you're doing great. Thank you very much. I hope you're doing great too, Pearl. Yes, and I just want to reiterate, like I said this morning, I got a couple of questions from you guys regarding my new course, the whole Write Like a Professional course, which I tried to have done for today, but unfortunately, I've been under the weather. I've got the flu or a cold or something, so I wasn't able to quite do it for today, but it will be done for next Monday. That's my third course, and several people were asking me, what do we do if we get all 3 courses? Can we get all 3 courses? And the answer is yes. And here's what I've decided I'm going to do. If you have bought 2 of my courses, you get the third one for free. So if you buy or have already bought my 2 previous courses, Get Hired and the $100 MBA, and you'd like to get this one too, all you have to do is go register for it when it's ready in a week and send me an email. And what I will do is I will go in and I will enroll you in it free of charge if you've already bought 2 courses from me. Presumably all from the same email address and name. Okay, because that's what I'm going off. So there you go. That's the big announcement. So that'll hopefully be out in a week. Yeah, so let me know any questions you are struggling with. Something I got recently was somebody asked me, what are the rules for how to dress for a job interview? I did a video on that a while back, and basically you want to dress up a little bit more than what you normally would. So depending on what industry you're in, what level you're in, okay, you're wanting to dress up at least one level above what you are now, okay, or what you normally would wear to work. Okay, that's the idea. Now, if you're going for a white-collar job, basically, you know, if you don't know anything, just assume it's business formal. Okay, so that means you got to wear a tie if you're a guy. If you're not in a white-collar job, you're in a blue-collar job, you could wear a golf shirt, is pretty standard, like a polo shirt, and that's pretty standard across the board. Okay, so if you don't know either way, that's kind of the default to fall back on. But what's better is if you research the company, if you get online, type in the name of the company and do an image search and see if you can see how these people dress, or if you know how they dress, you try and look exactly like them so that when you show up, you look like you fit, you look like you belong there. That's the idea, okay? Obviously, it matters how qualified you are and all that kind of stuff, but it is pretty powerful to start off on the right foot and make a good impression by showing up looking like you belong there. That's pretty important. Okay, if you show up and you look like you're really not the person, okay, you show up, you're dressed completely different, that kind of, without anyone knowing any different, without you having opened your mouth yet, people kind of assume that you just don't get it, right? You don't look like you fit, right? And then it's an uphill battle to change everybody's minds because they're starting from the assumption that, you're not the person we're going to hire. Okay. So you've got to change their mind. That's pretty hard. It's a lot easier to start off making a first impression that you are the person. And then all you have to do from that point is just not talk yourself out of a job. It's a lot easier to do. So it's very important to make that first impression. And part of that is your attire, is how you look. So yeah, I did a video on that. So check out my video on that to go deeper into it. I also go into, for ladies, what, if ever you're going to take sartorial advice from me about how to dress, but in terms of a job interview, what's expected, what the sort of protocol is, I laid it out also for guys and for girls. Traditionally what the expectations are. So check out that video. Yeah, not a whole hell of a lot of questions. As I say, I only have about half an hour here, but I kind of want to say the default thing that I talk about more often than not, which is nobody really talks too much about the psychological effect of being between jobs or having to tack on another income stream. It's pretty rough, pretty stressful for people. And the irony of this whole process is that right when you have to try and make a good impression and show some initiative, unfortunately, that's the moment when we feel at our lowest, okay, at our least confident, least amount of self-esteem because we're between jobs. A lot of people are dealing with that. And if you are dealing with that, I just want you to know that you are not alone. It's a pretty common thing that's going on there. You are not alone. Most people feel like that. Certainly a lot of people feel like that. And the key is just to fake it till you make it, essentially. Act like you're confident, even though you're not. Inside, you might not be feeling like you're on your A game. But that's okay, because the good thing is that it very rarely shows. So you should know that. If you feel nervous or you feel out of your comfort zone or anything like that, the good thing is that you think like you're giving it off in waves and it's obvious to everyone. It isn't. Okay. And if you've done some mock interviews with a friend or family member, they can confirm that for you. So there you go. I don't have a drink today. I put it down and I came back to my office, so I got a drink somewhere out there. But that's okay. Because it's not like I went into coughing fits right before the live stream went live. So there you go. Yeah, we got 15 people here. Thank you for being here. There's not a lot of questions coming in, so there's not really too much I can talk about. I don't have a pre-planned agenda here. I was just kind of going to go on live questions. But yes. Anyway, I will say a couple of things while we're waiting. Something that a lot of people have been wondering about that I've gotten the questions many times is, what are the standard job interview questions? What can I expect that they will ask me when I go to a job interview? That has an answer, because if you're talking to a hiring manager, there's less of a script. But if you're talking to a recruiter, there's more of a script. There's more like standard questions that they answer. And the things that you definitely should be prepared for are the following. You've got your introductory question. Usually it's some form of tell me about yourself. They can say literally tell me about yourself, or they can phrase it in many different ways. Walk me through your resume, is an example. It's the same question, right? You do the same thing. You do an introduction. So make sure that you know the answer to that, okay? It's very dangerous to speak off the top of your head and go into unscripted territory. You end up giving away things that you don't realize might be a red flag for them. Okay, so it's very important to rehearse this stuff. Make sure, excuse me, God. Yep, I'm still sick. Make sure that you have an answer to also, they're going to ask you some form of the question, why should we hire you? Okay, so they might say, why should I hire you? They might say, what are your strengths? Okay, this is an open floor for you to give them reasons to hire you. And basically you answer with what you have, what you've done, what you know, okay, your skills, your capabilities, your education, your experience, okay? But however, what you got to understand is that recruiters are looking for very specific things, and the things that they're looking for, a lot of them are in the job posting under requirements where they've said, we're looking for someone who has this, and this. So as much as you possibly can in a job interview, excuse me again, as much as you possibly can, make sure that you're telling them that you have these things, okay? So that they know. If they say, why should we hire you? You say, well, I have this, and this, right? And those coincidentally happen to be the 3 top things that they said they were looking for, right? You consider that your strength. Other standard questions is they're going to ask you a question about the future, and they're going to ask you a question about the past, okay? So the future question is going to be some form of, where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? And the reason they're asking this is because you could be the most qualified person in the world. You could be the most intelligent, hardworking person in the world. That doesn't matter if you don't want to be in this job. For all they know, you're desperate for money. You'll take any job that pays you any money just so you can get the money, but you really have absolutely no interest in doing the job. Excuse me. And so what they want to make sure is that if they hire you and they say, congratulations, you now have this job, you will actually want to do it. Okay? It's all signed, sealed, and delivered. You're getting paid. You're employed. Now, do you actually have any enthusiasm for doing the work, right? Part of the recruiter's job is to find someone who will have enthusiasm for the work, not someone who's going to say, I can't stand doing this. I only took this job for the money, but really this work sucks and I really don't feel like doing it, right? That's the last thing they want. So they're going to ask you a question about the future. Where do you see yourself? Now, if you say, I see myself being somewhere completely different to this place, I don't see myself here. I want to see myself somewhere in a different industry, doing completely different things, right? That's a red flag. They're going to ask you a question about the past. Why did you leave your last job, right? Some form of that. The rule there is to recognize that, this isn't a deposition. You don't have to answer and give them full and complete information for any question they ask. They could sit you down in there and say, I just want to confirm your name. I want to confirm your address. Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, what is your credit card number? Right? You don't want to answer a question like that, obviously. So the same applies to if they say, why did you leave your last job? An incorrect answer would be to say anything negative about yourself or your boss or your previous employer or anyone, right? If they say, why did you leave your last job? You could say, well, I left because my boss was a jerk and I hated that company and my coworkers are a gang of idiots, right? That's pretty much an automatic elimination if you say something like that. That's signaling that you're the type of person that if they hired, you would find your boss to be a jerk, your coworkers to be idiots, and your company to be stupid, right? So don't say that. In a nutshell, you want to say something like, I was ready to do more, right? It's positive, and it also brings the focus back to this job, right? The correct answer is always you want to do something more like this, right? That's what people naturally like to hear, right? So they're going to ask you a question about the future. They're going to ask you a question about the past. They're going to ask you a question about compensation in some form. Usually it's just to make sure that if they get to the point where they make you an offer, you're not going to throw it back in their face because, oh no, I was expecting $1 million. You're only paying me 40,000 or, whatever it is. So, right. They want to make sure that, you're not expecting like way more money than they can pay you. Okay, because if you are, then all of this is moot because when they give you the offer, it'll be too little. You said you wanted this much, and they're only paying you this much. So chances are it's not going to work out anyway, right? So you might as well end it here and go with a candidate that will be happy with the amount of money that you're going to pay, right? That's why they ask that question, especially early on. They don't ask you that question so they can try and come to some arrangement of what they're going to pay you. They ask the question, especially in the beginning, to filter you out, right? So, so usually there's a question about compensation. It gets a little bit involved when we talk about compensation. The best thing to remember is that you don't want to give a number, okay? Because no matter what number you give, that's what, like, you lose basically, because if you say a high number, you risk pricing yourself out of the running, okay? They can't afford you and they want to go with someone cheaper, right? The problem is if you give a low number, then they're going to hold you to that. You said you would be happy with minimum wage, so we're offering you minimum wage, right? So you kind of lose, right? So whichever way you cut it, you're kind of screwed if you give a number. That's the general rule. The best thing to do is to avoid answering the question, okay? It's just as simple as that. There are many ways to try and wriggle out of it. You say, it's too early for me to, I don't know hardly anything about this job, yet. I can't really give you an answer. You throw the question back. This is an official job. It was approved and posted. So I'm assuming that the salary range was approved and posted. Can I ask what it is? And then they'll make up some, cock and bull story about, we don't know, we're hiring for this job, but we don't know how much it pays, right? Yeah, that's really believable, right? They don't want to tell you because as soon as they tell you, then, they kind of lose their negotiating power. If you know that they're willing to go as high as X, you're going to ask for nearly X, right? Okay, so long story short, best thing to do is just give a wide range, a low number to a high number, where the low number and the high number are both still possible, but it's a stretch, right? So you say somewhere between here and here, that would be fine. And if they push you for more, you say, well, that's the only answer I can give you. Okay, I'd just be pulling a number out of the air if you want me to go any more specific than that. I don't know enough about the job to really be able to say. Okay, so somewhere between here and there would be reasonable. I'm sure we can work something out, right? They can also ask you, how much money did you make in your last job, right? They can ask you these pointed questions. And remember, like I said before, this is not a deposition. That is personal information. In most countries of the world, they cannot verify that number. They don't have access to it. It's none of their business. They have no right to it. So they can't go to a website and look it up. They can't discover how much you're making. There are some exceptions in some countries around the world, but generally, especially in the West, or and in the EU and all this, you know what I'm saying? The only way they would know that number is if you told them. And unfortunately, that kind of works. It's social engineering. They just ask you for the number, and a lot of candidates will give it to them, kind of unknowingly, right? And what they'll do is they don't know how much you're worth, so they form their opinion of how much you're worth based on what somebody else has been paying you, and you stayed there, right? So they conclude that, that must be a reasonable amount of money to pay for you. So what they'll do is they'll pretty much pay you that number or that number plus a pittance, right? And that's how that works. Okay, so the best thing to do there is just to basically politely and professionally refuse to answer. You say, I just have a personal policy of not giving out that kind of information. I'm sure you understand, right? Something professional like that. It kind of no one's going to rake you over the coals for that. Or if they do, you just give them that answer again, right? It's as if somebody asked you for your credit card number. I'm sorry, I don't give that information out, just as a personal policy for privacy reasons. I'm sure you understand, right? Yeah, those are the big ones. There's other questions that they ask too, but those are kind of the big ones you should prepare for. Ant Johnson is here. Says, guys and gals, take heed to what this man is saying. His knowledge is tried and true. Well, thank you very much, Ant Johnson. That's quite the vote of confidence. There are other things that they ask you. The other big thing that they will probably ask you is some form of behavioral question. And that's, it usually starts with, tell me about a time, and then fill in the blank, right? It's where you have to answer with a personalized story from your past. And for that reason, everybody's answers are going to be different, right? Now, the problem is, there's no way to really anticipate these. There's so many questions that can start with, tell me about a time that, something happened, right? They could say, tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. Tell me about a time you had a disagreement with your boss. Tell me about a time you showed creativity in your work. Tell me about a time where you failed at a task that your boss gave you and you had to explain it. Tell me about a time where there was an emergency and you had to use creative thinking to resolve it. Something like, there's an infinite number of questions like this. So the problem is you can't sort of prepare your answers one question at a time. It's just impossible. So what you do is you do a little bit of preparation. Before your job interview, you've got to practice a couple of stories, okay? I recommend 10, okay? So 5 and 5 success stories, 5 failure stories. Now, what you want to do is you want to think back to your career if you've had previous jobs. If you haven't had any previous jobs, think back to your schooling, okay? What you have done. And think about maybe say 5 of your greatest triumphs, okay, your greatest accomplishments. And then think about 5 other stories that are not necessarily failures, but they're conflicts. Okay, you tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker or with a boss, where you had to resolve something, okay? And rehearse these. Number 1, you got to practice saying them in a very compact way. So you're not blathering on for 10 minutes, trying to tell this stream of consciousness story. Okay, so you rehearse saying them in a very compact way. A very useful format is the STAR format: situation, task, action, result. Situation was, I was working in this job. Task is, my boss told me I had to go and do this. Action is what you did. I did this, it went wrong, somebody got upset. And then result is, I smoothed it over, and or action is like, it went wrong, and then so I had to smooth it over and make a deal and blah, blah, blah. And then result is how it turned out. We accomplished the goal. My boss commended me on being able to put out that fire, and it gave me some credibility. Okay, so that's a great template: situation, task, action, result. So rehearse 10 stories from your past. And these things, not only do you have to say them in a compact way, so it doesn't take forever to say this in a job interview, but you've also got to make sure that if you had to do that situation over again, you would do the same thing, okay, today, right? Because the reason they're asking you about your past is because they're going to assume that if you behaved a certain way in that situation in the past, if they were to hire you and that situation came up again, this is how you'd behave, right? So if there was a conflict and you handled it well in the past, that's what you want to say. Don't pick a story where there was a conflict, but you handled it poorly, but you've since learned how to handle it properly. Like, don't tell that story, right? Because they're going to assume that if you didn't handle it well in the past, that you won't handle it well if they hire you, right? So those are called behavioral questions, where you have to answer with specific stories about how you did something. Okay, so you go prepared with these 10 stories on the tip of your mind, all ready to go. And then whatever behavioral question they ask you, you're going to pull out one of those 10 stories. It's ready to go. You pick the one that, is reasonably close to the question they're asking to, and that's what you say. It flows out. There's no red flags in it. You're good at telling it. It doesn't take up the whole interview, and it doesn't reveal any red flags about you. And if you do that, I mean, you're doing pretty well, right? Like, things are going to be a variation on it. There are some more exotic questions. Like if you go to a job interview and somebody says, what's your spirit animal or something, what animal best represents you? I did a video on that. It's actually if I had to pick one video from my channel, that's like my favorite video. I think it was my most shining moment and I made a video that turned out well. It's that video. So go check out that video. What animal are you? It's just a stupid question, but I mean, some people still ask things like that. So if ever they do, you'll be prepared. I think that pretty much covers the basic stuff. Those are the basic questions. If they say, are there any questions for us? Like at the end of, do you have any questions for us at the end of the interview? There's like, don't say no, always have questions. There are many examples of good questions. You could say, could you describe a typical day for someone in this role? You could say, have you seen anything in other candidates that you haven't yet seen in me that I could perhaps speak to? You can say, what's the biggest challenge ahead for someone in this role? What will be the biggest challenge for someone in this role? What is the biggest challenge that's coming up, for this industry or for this company? You could ask about that. What do you expect the person that you hire, what do you expect them to accomplish in the first 30, 60, 90 days? Where do you expect them to be at those milestones? Like these are all great questions. And then the last question you should ask when leaving any interview, like not even a job interview, but just any interview, is where do we go from here? Right? So will they tell you if you've moved on to the next round? Is there another round of interviews? Or, should I call to check up in a week? Or, like where do we go from here? Right? That's usually the last thing you say before shaking everyone's hands or bumping everyone's elbow or doing a chest bump or however you end a job interview typically in your industry. That's usually the last thing you say. And there you go. It's kind of the basics. Mike is here. Mike says, in the past, I had issues with coworkers not working as hard as me. Today, I won't let that bother me. 1, my boss probably already sees this. 2, the coworkers is not a bad person per se. My answer to that kind of question. Okay, good. If anyone has any quick questions, ask them now, because in like a couple of minutes, I gotta get rolling. I've got some business I got to deal with. I ended up pretty much monologuing this entire episode. But while I'm waiting for any questions, just as a reminder, if you are lost, you have to get a job, you don't know how to go about it, you're running into some snags with your job search campaign, and you happen to be looking for a definitive source of what to do, the different methods of getting a job, and how to go about it with templates and kind of step-by-step, check out this thing, my Get Hired course. There's a link in the description. And it doesn't just link to the course itself. It links to also a video I have that describes, a Q&A that describes the course, so you know exactly what you're getting into. I answer a lot of common questions about it. Very popular course. I said this morning when I was live that something like over 100 people have taken that. It's like actually like over 350 people have taken that course. So yeah. And nearly 200 have taken the $100 MBA. So if you want to learn, that's the solution. If you want to learn business, I basically teach you everything that you would learn in a brick and mortar Masters of Business Administration program in one course. And how do I do this? It's because basically I recommend a reading list. The reading lists are the definitive textbooks for each of the subjects, textbooks that are used in established MBA programs all over the world, world-renowned programs like Harvard Business School, their MBA program. And basically you get the book, you can order it from Amazon, and you can read the material yourself at your own convenience, at your own, you can go to the depth that you want. Maybe you just want to skim the material. You want to see what's in an MBA program. Maybe you're only interested in one area of business, like marketing, or finance or something. You don't really care too much about operations or HR, but you get a reading list. And what I do is I provide a couple of videos per book where I guide you through the entire book. And I sort of give you the overview and what, parts are, in my opinion, are very important that really apply, to the real world, and what parts maybe are less important. And I also give you my personal take on, having been an executive and a CEO, kind of how this stuff applies, what's the really useful stuff, where it can go. So I do that for basically the entire program. So it's a self-study thing. And there are no evaluations, no assignments, no tests, no exams. Okay, that alone makes it unaccredited. It'll never be accredited because I don't, I'm not verifying what you've gotten out of it. It's, you get out of it what you want. Some people take this just to sort of put their toe in the water because they're wanting to take a $50,000 brick and mortar MBA program. They want to get a preview of what they're going to be covering. So as a result, they just skim, right? And some people are entrepreneurs. They just want to learn the material. They want to learn it for its intrinsic value, not because they need a diploma to impress people, but because they actually want to use the knowledge. And I think that's very admirable. So anyway, if that's of any interest to you, there's this link in the description. Check it out. I also have another video that answers a lot of questions about it, so you can see exactly what you're getting into before you pull the trigger. It says, hey, from Armenia. Hey, Armenia. There's some interesting things going on there right now. Are you in Yerevan? Yeah. Stay safe. Anyway, I have to get rolling pretty soon. Thank you guys for being here. There's 26 of you here. You guys are all awesome. I will be back with a more normal episode of How to Get Hired next week. At some point in the morning. I can't say exactly when. It'll probably be a little earlier next week. But if you have questions, and I can give you a hand with them, save them till then. And I will do my best to help you out. Until then, I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. And best of luck. Take care.